The men in our lives. I always thought that my father never cried, that my brothers never had. I knew that since they were men, they had no fears, no cries, and that they all could bear whatever would come their way. Being young allowed me to see things from a perspective of others. After all, I always had the people say, "Hey, be a man, you don't have to cry." But they were only talking to boys. So, in short, the boys didn't have to cry. Now, as a grown up woman, I can relate to some of those statements. I recently saw an elderly man kneel on the road, not by the road, on the road. Culturally, it's really hard for a man to go on his knees except he is in a desperate situation, let alone in the middle of the road where onlookers are waiting with their cameras to take a story viral, yet they don't even know the issue at hand. But why was this man kneeling on the road? His means of survival had been taken away. I could imagine that as a breadwinner, he was expected to take food home, pay the bills, and probably that night he would have to deal with a wife who is not understanding. Probably he would be given a look that demeans his ego. I just pictured what he would have to go through, a situation so desperate that he had to go down on his knees on the roadside and beg for help. That moment taught me something really amazing about the men in our lives. I know that sometimes they are complicated. Many times we ignore them. Many times we blame them. Sometimes we don't even understand them. Sometimes we accuse them. And many times we do not see the pain that they go through. Why? Because we were told that the men in our lives don't have to cry. You tell the boys, don't cry, be a man. That is what we know them to be. Probably sometimes they close up themselves. And like a child, they equally know they're not supposed to cry because that is what is put within them. Don't cry, be strong. You need to be strong for the woman out there. And as life continues to go on, I go to work daily, hoping to earn a living. My husband goes to work, hoping to earn a living. But I look at it from my perspective. Sometimes when I get out there and probably the day doesn't go out right, I always say, okay, probably my husband has got out something for the day. And I know he's working endlessly to ensure that even though he has a wife that goes to work daily, he is the man in the house. He's the breadwinner in the house. He's the man everybody looks up to. He's the man the children are running up to and say, "Daddy, we need this, we need that." But I think of a man who goes out and hopes to earn a living through the day, but the day turns out like a nightmare. Yet the wife awaits a meal and the little babies await a sweet. I imagine the thoughts that run through his mind, thinking of where the bread will come from the day for the day. I picture a situation where probably he has lost his job and is just wondering, where am I going to get the next meal for the day? Because it is not every day that the sun shines bright. Sometimes the sun tends to hide away from us. I remember my father. He used to come to school and bring a meal, not cooked by anyone else. I remember Mama telling us that your daddy says he wanted to prepare the meal himself. He had to ensure that his children got the very best. As a child, I easily compared the fast foods that other parents brought to school, probably from the amazing KFCs or from any other beautiful restaurant. But my father walked into the kitchen and prepared the special dish he used to love preparing, the rice and fried egg. And he cooked it his way, not anyone else's way, because he always said he wanted to give his daughters the very best. By the time I and my sister went the same high school, and every visitation day that daddy came, that is what he brought. And I recall he would equally get 2,000 shillings for the both of us. By the time as a child, I was wondering why couldn't daddy bring better, or why couldn't he bring this other meal? And the child in you begins to think about the KFCs. But now, as a grown up woman, I can only think if I had the chance to go over and over and receive that meal, I would surely love to eat that same meal every single day. Why? Because I know what the Father goes through to ensure that He gives the best for His children. I know what He has to go through to ensure that that meal is something that you eat and remember that Daddy has done this for me. It is an amazing thing that He used to put food at the table. But right now, I can imagine that there were days when it was not daddy putting that food at the table, but it was mommy coming up to help. But something amazing about that even if it was mommy who did contribute, none of us knew that it was mommy helping her husband to put a meal at the table. Those moments when the sun was not so bright on daddy's side. But we did not know it. And she kept it to herself. They kept it to themselves because she knew that she had to support the man in her life. I know that the man in my life did only what a man could do. He was my father, yet he was a husband. He was a brother. He was a friend. He was somebody's uncle. I would like us to take a moment and appreciate the men in our lives. The husbands, the fathers, the brothers, the uncles, the friends. And in a generation where it is easy to say, I don't need a man in my life. I don't need a father for my daughter or my son. I don't need a husband. I think we have lost it. Truth is, we cannot do it all. There's a reason as to why God said that let us have man and woman. Let us have the husband and the wife. If we think that we can do it on our own, then we have lost it. Because in God's design, a man was needed and a man is still needed. And once we try to replace him with anything or something else, then I know we have lost it. We have started on a journey to desolation. And that is not a road that anyone would want to take. So, to the men in our lives, to the husbands in our lives, to the fathers in our lives, to the uncles in our lives, to the brothers in our lives, at least in one point in time, they either become a father or a brother or an uncle or a husband. At one point in time, they have a responsibility and everybody looks up to them. So, to the men in our lives, we honor you, we celebrate you, and we thank you for who you are. God bless you.